Anyway, we borrowed heavily from the English, naturally, because a lot of our immigrant people came here. The original people that came here from Europe were from England, and we borrowed heavily from their traditions. The word sheriff. Does anybody know where the word sheriff comes from?
Shire reed.
Shire reed. Yes, back in feudal England, people, in order to take care of each other, they were all living on manors, usually owned by an earl or a lord or something. And everybody was pretty poor, but they would organize themselves into units of maybe 10 families or so. Today we would probably call that neighborhood watch, right? To help one another and pay attention to what was going on. Well, as the tradition continued, these 10 family units would organize themselves into larger ones of about 100 families. Those groups of 100 families became known as a shire. Lincolnshire, etc. The English word shire. Well, as it continued, there was a person that came involved from that community. They didn't come to the community. It was one of the people was selected to be the reeve. And that person's job was to help the families if they had disputes, to help them figure things out, to help them get resources if they could. And they were just one of the people. And initially, the owner of the manor would appoint that person, but as the years went by, they developed a tradition of electing that reeve each year. Well, they came to the New World. A lot of them came over here and brought their traditions with them. And of course, we've heard about the Pilgrims and all of the other immigrant groups that came here, organizing, very family-oriented, God-fearing people. And they would have the same tradition here. Now, come along 1776, we call on this, decided to reject some of the British traditions, didn't we? Okay. But we retained some of those other ones. And one of the traditions we share today is that we elect our county sheriff. Now, Oath Keepers was founded on April 19, 2009 at Lexington Green, the site of the shot heard round the world. The founder of Oath Keepers is a gentleman named Stuart Rhodes. He is a constitutional lawyer. He does not chase ambulances. He does not go to court. He writes opinions for different organizations on constitutional issues. When I first learned about Oath Keepers last November, I looked on a website, oathkeepers.org. There's a video on there. We're going to take a look at a very small part of it here in a few minutes. But I learned that the mission of Oath Keepers was to reach, teach, and inspire. Well, my mom and my dad taught me always to ask questions, and the questions that popped into my mind was, reach where? Teach what? Inspire who? And how? And most fundamentally, why? Now, we saw the film about Sheriff DeMayo over in Nye County. I'd like to take a quick look at the first 10 minutes of our Oath Keepers DVD right now. It's going to give you some information. It's going to give you an example of something that is not quite so cheery. And we'll talk about it real briefly when the 10 minutes is over. So we lose our constitutional rights because of bad weather, huh? Oath Keepers is not a political organization. It is based on American civics. Bill O'Reilly, I passionately disagree with him. He had Mr. Rhodes on his show one afternoon. Is it dark? Sorry. Stuart was invited on to Bill O'Reilly's program one afternoon and one evening, following the previous broadcast of O'Reilly, where a gentleman from the Southern Poverty Law Center was on there. I don't recall what that gentleman was talking about with Mr. O'Reilly, but he brought up the name Oath Keepers. He said, Mr. O'Reilly, there's an organization in the United States that we consider the most dangerous organization in this nation has ever seen. O'Reilly had never heard of it. He said, well, we'll get someone on there from that organization tomorrow. And sure enough, the next day, I was sitting in my home. I'm from Barstow. And there was Stuart sitting there on split screen with Bill O'Reilly. And Bill O'Reilly was saying, well, Mr. Rhodes, tell us about your organization. And Stuart just basically said a few words. And Bill O'Reilly said, oh, so I guess we'll consider yours a right-wing organization. I've lived 63 years in this country. The Constitution sits on the foundation of the Declaration of Independence. You know, those founders, they did not declare war, did they? They declared independence. They were throwing off some of those tyrannical traditions that had followed them here during their migration from England and other parts of the world. And through divine providence, they created a structure of government that is limited on purpose. Earlier I was mentioning about sheriffs. I've learned so much just because I've been inspired. Reach, teach, and inspire. I have found myself inspired by being involved with Oath Keepers. And frankly, it's not a membership. This is not a recruitment drive. Those 10 orders that I will not obey. We need that to be in the heart of every person who wears a badge, every person who wears a military uniform, and every single human being that we elect to represent us at every level of government. If they do not do that, I don't care what their rationale is, they are an oath breaker. They're performing treason to the fundamental principles upon our whole culture. The unique American way of life is built. And we will not stand for it. The sheriff is unique as far as law enforcement. And I hope that people who wear badges think of themselves as peacekeepers or peace officers rather than law enforcement officers. This way that people look at themselves is critically important, how they function and how they behave. But if you think about all the different people who wear badges that carry firearms and it's their job. City police. In Barstow, we have a city police department. The police chief is employed by the city, a government. The highway patrol, who's the employer? State of California, a level of government. How about the FBI? Federal government, Secret Service. There's nothing wrong with that. Who employs the sheriff? We do. We elect him. He is supposed to be from our ranks. He is supposed to be one of us. And as evidenced by, now on that DVD, I hope I can come back and talk with you folks sometime again. I consider this what a privilege for me to come over and talk with you. The third segment of that DVD that we saw is a gentleman by the name of Sheriff Richard Mack. He's former, some of you may have known him, he's former county sheriff in Hammond County, Arizona. In the early 1990s, the Congress passed the Brady Bill. Mr. Lewis, you were there. And when it finally came down, was signed into law, it required that background checks be performed on people who are going to purchase firearms. It also mandated that county sheriffs would be the agencies that would perform those background checks. Well, Sheriff Mack, he was still in his position at that time, and a number of other county sheriffs around the country filed suit claiming that some of those requirements in that Brady Bill were not constitutional. And number one, there was no provision to compensate the county sheriff departments to do this work. And they referenced specific parts of the Constitution where you cannot require someone to do work without compensation. And also, the pillar of the lawsuits that went to the Supreme Court was that the county sheriff is not subject to jurisdiction of the federal government. They're subject to the jurisdiction only of the people in their county. When you get home, use your favorite search engine and Google the Mack Prince. M-A-C-K. The other sheriff from Montana, P-R-I-N-T-Z. The Mack Prince decision. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court of the United States found that in the Sheriff Mack's favor, and Justice Scalia, writing an opinion for the majority, cited the 10th Amendment, I believe, 7 times. When we watch this next DVD thing, when I come back and talk to you here, I want you to hear what Richard Mack has to say. The way that we are going to take this republic back. This is not a democracy. This is a republic. There's no similarity at all. And I'd appreciate it if especially our national elected officials would quit referring to things like, well, our democracy is not supposed to work this way. Surely they know it's not a democracy. But that's time for another talk, I guess. But you will see what we're going to do. We have to start from right where we're doing right now in Victorville, California, and Pinion Hills, and Barstow, and wherever you live. We have to make sure that the people that we put in these positions understand our Constitution and that they abide by the oath they took to preserve, protect, and defend it. Now, over the weekend, you saw the little old lady there, or the little lady, excuse me, who was tackled during Hurricane Katrina. Anybody have any idea what law enforcement agency tackled her? CHP. That was California Highway Patrol, on loan. That's right. It was kind of hard to hear in the DVD, but you heard the police chief of New Orleans say that no one's going to be allowed to keep firearms. Does he have the authority to give that order? No. Oh, yes, he does. No. But it's an illegal order. The people under his command, they have a decision, and this is something that I want every member of law enforcement and everyone in the military who is given orders to do certain things by their superiors. In Oath Keepers, we respect the fact we are asking them to make very difficult choices because they risk their job, they risk their reputation, they risk their family's reputation if they choose to disobey an illegal order. This is not a game. This is very, very serious stuff. So we are not looking for people to step forward, yes, I'm an Oath Keeper. We want them to have that Oath Keeper's credo in their heart and understand it. And to the extent that we can help them learn more about the United States Constitution, and not only what's in it, but why it is important, these various provisions. The recent federal district court decisions, now I'm not an attorney, but I've read the Constitution, as I'm sure most of you have. In Arizona, the judge ruled against SB 1070. Within 10 days, the Virginia federal district court judge refused to agree with the Justice Department that no, the lawsuit that Virginia brought against Obamacare, it does in fact have merit. I'm not going to throw it out. Both of those decisions are bogus, folks. It says in the Constitution that any case involving a state, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. Then why is it being heard in federal district court? That's not the Supreme Court, is it? Do these people not even know those basic things? The Constitution is filled with one sentences, one after the other. It's very simple. It says the federal government shall protect every state from invasion. Now, we have to start forcing them from the ground up. Our local level, we have to work with our county sheriff. They have a tremendous amount of authority. You saw what Sheriff DeMayo has done over in Nevada. He told the feds, get off this land. And if you come back, my SWAT team will be there. You saw that. So, folks, over the weekend, Judge Napolitano was having a conversation with Dr. Thomas Sowell, the economist from Stanford University. And during that conversation, Dr. Sowell said, the Constitution cannot protect us unless we protect the Constitution. Will you stand for the Constitution? Will you stand for liberty? Will you stand up for the America we love? God bless you. Thank you.